Dr. Zeph Calandro stared at the burning sky above Cytheria Prime. Red flames danced across the atmosphere where Vrex warships had destroyed 3 orbital defense stations. The alien doctor's blue-scaled hands shook as he watched escape pods falling like burning stars. "Doctor, we need you in the archive chamber now," came a voice through his communicator. It was Council Leader Thara, and she sounded scared. Zeph had never heard fear in her voice before, not even when the Vrex first attacked their outer colonies. Zeph ran through the ancient stone corridors of the Cytherian Capitol building. His people had built this place 1,000 years ago, back when they still fought wars. Now they were peaceful traders, and they had no idea how to fight an enemy like the Vrex. The archive chamber was deep underground, filled with old books and data crystals that most Cytherians had forgotten about. Council Leader Thara waited for him there, along with the other 6 council members. Their faces showed the same fear that gripped Zeph's heart. "The Outer Rim is gone," Thara said without greeting. "Colonies 7, 8, and 9 are dead worlds. The bioweapons killed everything. Plants, animals, even the bacteria in the soil." Zeph felt sick. Millions of his people had lived on those worlds. Now they were all dead, and the planets themselves would be empty rocks for centuries. "Colony 6 will fall tomorrow," continued Thara. "Their shields are failing. After that, the Vrex will come here." "What about the other species?" asked Zeph. "The Althari Federation promised to help us if we were ever attacked." Council member Jorik shook his head. "The Althari are already fighting the Vrex on their own borders. They cannot spare any ships. The Nexus Collective is doing the same. Everyone is running from the Virex. So we die," said another council member. "Just like the Helians. Just like the Morvac Empire. Just like all the others," Thara stepped forward. "Maybe not. Zeph, you know our old languages better than anyone. I need you to find something in these archives. Something called the Final Beacon." Zeph searched his memory. The Final Beacon was mentioned in some very old texts, but he had never studied it closely. "I think it was some kind of emergency signal. From the old days when we still had a military." "Find it," Thara ordered. "Find everything about it." Zeph worked for hours reading through ancient files and translating old Cytherian script. Slowly, he began to understand what the Final Beacon was. His ancestors had created it during their last great war centuries ago. It was designed to send a message across the entire galaxy, asking for military help from any advanced species willing to fight. "This is it," Zeph said, showing the others a glowing hologram. "The Final Beacon sends out a distress signal with our location and a request for military aid. It promises payment to anyone who helps us. Does it work?" asked Thara. "According to these files, yes. But it was never used. Our ancestors made peace with their enemies before they needed it." Jorik looked worried. "Who would receive this signal? What if the Vrex intercept it?" Zeph studied the technical details. "The signal goes to specific coordinates, places where our ancient star charts showed advanced civilizations. Most of them are probably gone now, but maybe someone is still there." "What coordinates?" asked Thara. Zeph read from the old files. "The Althari regions, but they are already fighting. The Nexus worlds, but they are also at war. And something called Sector 7G listed as primitive worlds on these old charts." "Primitive worlds would not help us," said Jorik. "These charts are very old," Zeph replied. "A primitive world from 1,000 years ago might be advanced now. And if they are in a peaceful area, they might still have ships to spare." Outside, another explosion shook the building. Through the stone walls, they could hear the sound of Vrex atmospheric fighters attacking the city. The invasion had begun. "We have no choice," said Thara. "Activate the beacon. Send the signal to all 3 locations." Zeph's fingers moved over the ancient controls. The technology was old but still worked. The Final Beacon powered up with a low humming sound that seemed to come from deep in the planet's core. "Signal ready," Zeph announced. "What should I say?" Thara thought for a moment. "Tell them the truth. Tell them we are dying." Zeph typed in the message, translating it into the old galactic trade language that the beacon was designed to use. "Emergency Protocol Omega. The Cytherian Republic requests immediate military assistance. The Vrex Imperium is conducting systematic genocide against our people. 4 colonies already destroyed. 3 worlds remain under siege. Bioweapons being deployed. Total extinction estimated in 72 hours. Military aid desperately needed. Coordinates attached. Payment negotiable. Please respond." "Send it," said Thara. Zeph pressed the activation key. The beacon sent its signal racing across the galaxy at faster than light speed. carrying their desperate plea to whoever might be listening. The council members sat in silence, listening to explosions above their heads. Vrek's ground forces had landed in the capital city. Soon they would be breaking down the doors of the government building. How long until someone might answer? Asked Jorik. If anyone answers at all, Zeph said, maybe 3 days. The signal has to travel very far. We do not have 3 days, said Thara. But we had to try. Another explosion. Closer this time. The lights in the archive chamber flickered. Through their communicators, they could hear reports from across the city. Vrek's soldiers were moving through the streets, killing anyone they found. The bioweapon deployment would begin at dawn. Zeph looked at the beacon's display. The signal was traveling through space, carrying their words to distant stars. He wondered if anyone would receive it. He wondered if anyone would care enough to help a dying species they had never met. Maybe the primitive worlds in Sector 7G will surprise us, he said quietly. Thara almost smiled. If they even exist anymore. Those charts are very old. None of them knew that Sector 7G was now the home of a species that had spent 2 centuries preparing for exactly this kind of situation. None of them knew that their signal was about to reach a world called Earth, where humans had built one of the most powerful military forces in their part of the galaxy. None of them knew that their desperate call for help was about to change the balance of power in the entire galaxy as Vrek's forces surrounded the government building. Zeph and the council prepared for the end. They had done everything they could. Now they could only wait and hope that someone, somewhere, would hear their cry for help and decide to answer. The final beacon continued to transmit, sending its message into the darkness between the stars, carrying the last hope of the Catherian people toward whatever civilizations might still exist in the ancient coordinates programmed into its memory banks. Far away, in a solar system that the old charts had listed as nothing more than a young star with primitive rocks orbiting it, sensor stations began to detect an incoming signal. The message was addressed to anyone willing to fight, and it was about to reach a species that had never learned how to back down from a fight. Admiral Sarah Chen was drinking her morning coffee when the universe changed forever. She stood in the command center of Terra Defense Station, watching the usual flow of data from humanity's deep space sensors. Earth had been monitoring alien communications for decades, but they had never received a direct message before. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Martinez from the communications desk, "we have an incoming signal. It's not from any human ship." Sarah set down her coffee and walked over. "Show me." The main screen displayed a complex waveform of alien origin. The signal was strong and clearly artificial. More importantly, it was directed at their solar system. "Run it through the translation matrix," Sarah ordered. For 50 years, human scientists had been recording alien communications and building translation programs. They had never needed to use them for direct contact, but now the computers began working to decode the message. "Admiral," said Dr. James Park, the station's linguistics officer, "this is a distress signal, and it's asking for military help." Sarah felt her heart skip a beat. This was the moment every human military officer had trained for but hoped would never come. First contact with alien species, and it was a request for war. "Put it on the main screen," she said. The decoded message appeared in English text. "Emergency Protocol Omega. The Catherian Republic requests immediate military assistance. The Vrek's Imperium is conducting systematic genocide against our people. 4 colonies already destroyed. 3 worlds remain under siege. Bioweapons being deployed. Total extinction estimated in 72 hours. Military aid desperately needed. Coordinates attached. Payment negotiable. Please respond." The command center fell silent. Every person there understood what they were reading. Somewhere in space, an entire species was being murdered, and they were asking Earth for help. "Get me President Martinez on the emergency line," Sarah said, "and send this data to Intelligence Division immediately. I want to know everything about these Catherians and this Vrek's Imperium within the hour." 30 minutes later, Sarah was in a video conference with President Martinez, Defense Secretary Williams, and the heads of all major military branches. The president looked tired. He had been in emergency meetings since the signal arrived. "What do we know?" asked the president. General Thompson from Intelligence Division spoke first. "The signal contains detailed linguistic data. Our computers have learned enough to understand more of their communications. The Catherians appear to be a peaceful trading civilization. 7 worlds, maybe 50 million people total. And the Vrex? Asked Sarah. That's the concerning part, Thompson continued. We've detected their communications for years but never understood them. Now we can translate some of their messages. They call themselves an empire. They have conquered 47 different species over the past 5 centuries. Defense Secretary Williams leaned forward. How large is their military? From what we can determine, they control over 200 star systems. Their fleet is estimated at nearly 3,000 warships. They use biological weapons to destroy entire planets. The president was quiet for a long moment. And they're moving in our direction? Not directly, but yes. Our projection models show that if they continue expanding at their current rate, they'll reach human space within 50 years. Maybe less, Admiral Chen spoke up. Mr. President, we have a choice to make. We can ignore this signal and hope the Vrex never find us, or we can act now while they're focused on other targets. What are you suggesting, Admiral? We answer the call. We help these Catherians, and we show the Vrex that this part of the galaxy is not defenseless. Secretary Williams looked shocked. Admiral, we're talking about revealing humanity to the entire galaxy. Once we do this, there's no going back to hiding. We were never going to hide forever, Sarah replied. Our deep space exploration ships get farther from Earth every year. Eventually, someone was going to notice us. Better to make our first impression on our own terms. General Foster from the Space Marines crossed his arms. What if it's a trap? What if these Catherians are working with the Vrex? Dr. Park had been quiet during the meeting, but now he spoke. General, I've been analyzing their linguistic patterns. These people are terrified. The fear in their language is real. No one is that good at acting. President Martinez stood up and walked to the window. Outside, Earth looked peaceful. Green and blue and beautiful. But Sarah knew he was thinking about the darkness between the stars, where entire civilizations were being wiped out. How long do we have to decide? He asked. According to their message, maybe 3 days, Sarah answered. But our response time to their coordinates is 6 days at maximum fleet speed. If we're going to help them, we need to leave soon. What would we send? Sarah had been thinking about this since the signal arrived. The 3rd Fleet, Admiral Jackson's task force. 350 ships, including the Prometheus. The Prometheus was humanity's largest warship, a massive dreadnought that had never been tested in real combat. Like most of humanity's military, it had been built to fight a war that everyone hoped would never come. 350 ships, repeated the president, against an empire of 3,000. Mr. President, said Sarah, we've spent 2 centuries preparing for this. Our technology, our tactics, our training, everything has been designed for fighting a superior enemy. We've never had the luxury of assuming we'd be the stronger force. General Thompson added, our weapons testing shows significant advantages over what we've observed of Vrex technology. They've been fighting primitive civilizations for so long that their technology has become complacent. The president returned to his seat. The political implications are enormous. We'll be committing humanity to a galactic war. Sir, said Sarah quietly, we were already in that war. We just didn't know it yet. The Vrex were always going to find us eventually. At least this way we choose the ground we fight on. The debate continued for another hour. Military leaders argued for intervention, while some civilian officials urged caution. In the end, the vote was close, but the intervention faction won. Admiral Chen, said President Martinez, prepare the 3rd Fleet for immediate departure. Your mission is to respond to the Catherian distress call and render whatever assistance is necessary to stop the Vrex genocide. Yes, sir. What are our rules of engagement? The Vrex are conducting genocide. Stop them. Use whatever force is necessary. 6 hours later, Sarah stood on the bridge of the TDF Prometheus as the largest military fleet in human history prepared to leave Earth's solar system. Around her, 350 of humanity's best warships moved into formation. Each ship represented decades of human engineering and preparation for a war they had hoped would never come. Dr. Elena Vasquez, Earth's leading expert on alien biology and culture, had joined the fleet as their first contact specialist. She worked frantically to understand everything they could about Catherian society, from the linguistic data in their signal. Admiral, Dr. Vasquez reported, the Catherians appear to be completely peaceful. They have no military tradition that we can detect. They probably don't understand how space warfare actually works. And the Vrex, completely militaristic. Their entire society seems built around conquest and domination. They've been doing this for centuries. Sarah nodded. Then we'll teach them both something new. The fleet jumped to faster-than-light travel, leaving Earth behind. They were carrying humanity's introduction to galactic civilization, and that introduction was going to be delivered at the end of a railgun. As they traveled through the darkness between stars, Sarah wondered what they would find when they arrived. She wondered if the Catherians would still be alive. She wondered if the Vrex would be ready for the kind of fight that humans had been preparing for their entire history. Most of all, she wondered if humanity was about to change the galaxy forever, or if they were flying toward their own destruction. But as she looked out at the stars, she knew they had made the right choice. Someone had called for help and humanity had answered. That was who they were. That was who they had always been. The fleet raced through space carrying Earth's response to the galaxy's call for help. Dr. Zeph Calandros had not slept in 3 days. The Vrex had taken most of Catheria Prime's surface and their bioweapons were already being deployed in the outer districts. Zeph watched from the underground bunker as his beautiful blue-green world slowly turned brown and dead. "Any response to the beacon?" asked Council Leader Thara. Her voice was barely a whisper now. Most of the council members were dead, killed when Vrex soldiers overran the government district. "Nothing," Zeph replied, not looking away from his instruments. The signal reached its destinations, but no one has answered. Through the thick walls of their shelter, they could hear the sounds of dying. The Vrex bioweapons didn't just kill people, they killed everything. Plants, animals, even the tiny organisms that made soil fertile. In a few more hours, Catheria Prime would be a dead rock floating in space. "Maybe it's better this way," said Thara. "At least we tried." Zeph was about to agree when his instruments suddenly came alive with activity. Energy signatures were appearing at the edge of the star system, massive ones unlike anything in the Catherian database. "Thara," he said, his voice shaking. "Something is happening." The elderly council leader moved to look over his shoulder. On the screen, dozens of unknown contacts were emerging from faster-than-light travel. They were big, much bigger than any Catherian or Vrex ship. "More Vrex reinforcements?" asked Thara. "I don't think so," Zeph said, adjusting his sensors. "These energy signatures are completely different, and they're not heading for the planet." On the orbital scanner, they watched in amazement as the unknown fleet moved directly toward the Vrex invasion force. The alien ships were arranged in a perfect battle formation, moving with military precision that neither Catherian nor Vrex forces had ever displayed. "Who are they?" whispered Thara. Before Zeph could answer, the battle began. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Prometheus as her fleet emerged from FTL travel. The tactical display showed exactly what intelligence had predicted. A Vrex invasion force of about 60 ships surrounding a beautiful blue world that was already showing the brown stains of biological warfare. "All ships. This is Admiral Chen," she said into her communicator. "We have a genocide in progress. Rules of engagement are weapons-free. Protect the planet. Destroy all Vrex forces." "Admiral," called her tactical officer, "the Vrex ships are massive. Some of them are over 2 kilometers long." Sarah looked at the display. The Vrex vessels were indeed huge, but they were slow and clumsy looking. They had the appearance of ships built by a species that had never faced serious opposition. "Size isn't everything, Lieutenant. Target the largest vessels first. All ships commence attack." The human fleet opened fire. Humanity had spent 2 centuries developing weapons for space warfare. Their railguns could accelerate metal projectiles to significant fractions of light speed. Their plasma torpedoes could burn through any known armor. Their directed energy weapons could slice through enemy hulls like hot knives through butter. The Vrex had never faced anything like it. The first salvo from the human fleet destroyed 12 Vrex ships in 30 seconds. The massive biovessels, designed to intimidate primitive civilizations, were completely unprepared for the concentrated firepower of a military that had always assumed they would be outnumbered. "Enemy fleet is attempting to regroup," reported the tactical officer. "They're trying to bring their bioweapons to bear on our formation." "Don't let them," Sarah ordered. "All destroyers, intercept and destroy any ship that moves toward the planet. Battle cruisers, focus fire on their largest vessels." The Vrex bioweapons were truly horrifying to look at. The ships were partially alive, with writhing tentacles and organic armor that seemed to pulse with its own heartbeat. But they were also slow and vulnerable to kinetic weapons. Human destroyers danced around the massive Vrex vessels like sharks attacking whales. Their speed and maneuverability were far superior to anything the Vrex had encountered in centuries of easy conquests. "Admiral," called the communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission from the planet. It's in the same language as the distress signal." "Put it through," Sarah said. The voice was clearly alien, but translated in real time by their computers. "Unknown ships. This is Dr. Zeph Calandros of the Catherian Republic. Are you responding to our beacon signal?" Sarah smiled. "Dr. Calandros, this is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force. We received your distress call. We're here to help." There was a long pause before the alien scientist responded. "Terran Defense Force, we sent our signal to coordinates listed as primitive worlds in Sector 7G. "Doctor," Sarah replied, "your charts are a little out of date. We'll explain later. Right now, we're busy." A Vrex heavy cruiser was trying to escape the battle, accelerating toward the edge of the system. Sarah watched as 3 human destroyers pursued it, their weapons tearing through its organic armor. "No survivors," she ordered. "We can't let them report back to their empire." The battle was remarkably one-sided. The Vrex had grown complacent after centuries of fighting species with primitive technology. They had never learned to deal with an enemy that could match their firepower and exceed their tactical abilities. "Admiral," reported her intelligence officer, "we're detecting interesting technology on these Vrex ships, some kind of biological computing system, and their weapons are designed to target organic matter specifically." "Scan everything," Sarah said. "Intelligence will want to know how these bioweapons work." On the planetary surface, Dr. Zeph watched in amazement as the unknown human fleet systematically destroyed every Vrex ship in the system. The aliens fought with a precision and efficiency that seemed impossible. Each human ship moved with purpose, their weapons fire coordinated to maximum effect. "They're winning," Thera said in disbelief. "These Terrans are actually winning. In 47 minutes it was over." Every Vrex ship in the system had been destroyed. The massive bioweapons that had seemed invincible to the Catherians were now debris floating in space. "Dr. Calandros," came Admiral Chen's voice over the communicator. "This is Admiral Chen. The immediate threat has been neutralized. Are you in need of medical assistance?" Zeph looked around the bunker at the handful of surviving council members. Outside, his world was still dying from the bioweapons that had already been deployed. "Admiral Chen," he said, "our people are dying from Vrex biological weapons. We don't know how to stop them. We're sending medical teams to the surface now. Our doctors will do everything they can." Dr. Elena Vasquez led the first shuttle down to Catheria Prime. As their ship descended through the atmosphere, she could see the extent of the damage. Large sections of the planet's surface were already turning brown as the bioweapons killed everything they touched. "My God," she whispered. "They were really trying to kill everything." The shuttle landed near the government bunker and Elena stepped out onto an alien world for the first time in human history. The air smelled wrong, too clean, as if all the normal bacteria and organic compounds were missing. Dr. Zeph met them at the bunker entrance. He was tall and thin, with blue scales covering his skin and large dark eyes, but his expression of gratitude was unmistakably universal. "Dr. Vasquez," he said through their translation device, "thank you for coming. We thought we were going to die alone." "You're not alone anymore," Elena replied. "We're here to help." As human medical teams began working to counteract the Vrex bioweapons, Zeph and Elena talked. The Catherian scientist explained about their peaceful civilization and how unprepared they had been for the Vrex attack. "Your ancient charts," Elena said. "They listed our solar system as primitive worlds." "Yes," Zeph replied. "Our ancestors made those star charts over 1,000 years ago. Your system showed only a young star with some rocky planets. No signs of advanced civilization." Elena smiled. "A lot can change in 1,000 years." "How advanced are your people?" asked Zeph. Elena looked up at the sky where human warships were now in orbit around Catheria Prime. "Advanced enough. We've been preparing for something like this for a long time." "Preparing for what?" "War," Elena said simply. "We always assumed that space would be dangerous. We built our civilization accordingly. As the human medical teams worked to save what they could of Catheria Prime, Admiral Chen received reports from across the system. Her intelligence officers had recovered significant data from the destroyed Vrex ships, including star charts showing the full extent of the Vrex Empire. What they found was both encouraging and terrifying. The Vrex controlled over 200 systems, but their technology was less advanced than human weapons. However, their fleet was enormous and they had been expanding unchecked for centuries. "Admiral," called her communications officer, "we're receiving signals from other star systems. Multiple species are sending distress calls to Earth." Sarah realized that their intervention at Cytheria had been noticed across the galaxy. Word was spreading that a new military power had appeared, one capable of defeating the Vrex. "Set course for Earth," she ordered. "We need to report to command. This is bigger than one rescue mission." As the human fleet prepared to leave, Dr. Zeph stood with Dr. Vasquez on the observation deck of the Prometheus. Below them, Cytheria Prime was still damaged, but human biotechnology was slowly reversing the effects of the Vrex weapons. "Your people saved us," Zeph said quietly. "We will never forget this." "Doctor," Elena replied. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the temporary command center on Cytheria Prime, watching her medical teams work to save what remained of the planet's ecosystem. It had been 2 weeks since the battle, and the humans were learning just how extensive Vrex bioweapons could be. "Northern continent is responding well to treatment," reported Dr. Vasquez, "but the southern regions may take years to fully recover." Sarah nodded, but her attention was focused on the intelligence reports covering her desk. What they had learned from captured Vrex technology was disturbing. The force that attacked Cytheria had been just a scouting expedition, a tiny fraction of the Vrex Empire's real military power. "Admiral," called her intelligence officer, "Lieutenant Park, you need to see this." Sarah walked over to his workstation, where he had been analyzing Vrex star charts and communication logs. The display showed a 3-dimensional map of local galactic space with red dots marking Vrex-controlled systems. "How many?" she asked. "Over 200 star systems under direct Vrex control. And look at this." Park highlighted several yellow dots. "These are systems where we've detected Vrex reconnaissance ships in the past year." Sarah felt her stomach drop. Several of the yellow dots were uncomfortably close to human space. "They've been scouting our region." "Yes, ma'am. And according to these logs, they've been planning expansion in our direction for some time. Our intervention here may have accelerated their timeline." Dr. Zeph approached their workstation, carrying a datapad with translated Vrex documents. "Admiral Chen, we've finished analyzing their command protocols. The Vrex fleet that attacked us was under orders to report back within 30 standard days." "When was that deadline?" Sarah asked. "Yesterday," Zeph replied quietly. Sarah closed her eyes. She had hoped they might have more time before the Vrex Empire learned about humanity's existence. "How long before they send a larger force to investigate?" "Unknown," said Zeph, "but the Vrex do not accept failure. They will come looking for whoever destroyed their ships." Lieutenant Park brought up another display. "Admiral, we've been monitoring communications across this region of space. Word is spreading about what happened here. Multiple species are sending signals toward Earth." "What kind of signals?" "Distress calls, requests for protection, appeals for military assistance." Park paused. "Ma'am, 17 different species have sent messages asking for help against the Vrex." Sarah walked to the window overlooking the Cytherian capital city. Human engineering teams were working alongside local survivors to rebuild critical infrastructure. It was supposed to be a simple rescue mission, but she was beginning to understand that nothing about this situation was simple. Her communicator chimed with an incoming message from Earth. President Martinez appeared on the small screen, looking tired and worried. "Admiral, what's your status?" "The immediate crisis is over, Mr. President. But we have a bigger problem. The Vrex Empire is massive, and they've been planning to expand into our region for some time." "How massive?" Sarah gestured to Lieutenant Park, who transmitted the intelligence data to Earth. She watched the president's face as he reviewed the scope of the Vrex Empire. "My God," he said quietly. "Over 200 systems?" "Yes, sir. And according to Dr. Calandros, they've conquered or destroyed 47 different species over the past 5 centuries. President Martinez was quiet for a long moment. "Admiral, I've been meeting with the UN Security Council about our next steps. The decision to intervene at Cytheria was made quickly, but now we need to consider the long-term implications." "What are your orders, sir?" "We have 3 options. First, we withdraw to Earth and hope the Vrex don't find us for a few more decades. Second, we help the Cytherians rebuild and leave them to handle their own defense. Third, prompted Sarah. "Third, We accept that we've just announced humanity's presence to the galaxy, and we act accordingly. Sarah looked around the command center. Her officers were monitoring communications from across local space, tracking Vrex fleet movements and coordinating with multiple alien species. Sir, I don't think we can go back to hiding. Too many people know about us now. That's what our analysts think too. Admiral, I'm authorizing the establishment of a permanent Terran presence in this region. You'll be commanding a new forward operating base. What about the other species requesting our help? Case-by-case basis for now. But Admiral, the President paused, we may be looking at a fundamental change in how humanity interacts with the galaxy. After the call ended, Sarah found Dr. Vasquez in the xenobiology lab, where she had been studying captured Vrex technology alongside Dr. Zeph and several other Catherian scientists. What have you learned? Sarah asked. The Vrex bioweapons are specifically designed to target carbon-based life, Elena replied, but their technology is remarkably crude in some ways. They've been fighting primitive civilizations for so long that they haven't needed to innovate. Dr. Zeph looked up from a microscope. Admiral Chen, may I ask you something? Of course. Your people. How long have you been preparing for war? Sarah considered the question. Dr. Zeph, humans have been fighting each other for thousands of years. When we finally united and went to space, we assumed we would eventually meet hostile aliens. Everything we built was designed with that assumption. And you were right, said Zeph sadly. Unfortunately, yes. Elena pulled up a holographic display showing human and Vrex technology comparisons. Admiral, the good news is that our weapons are significantly more advanced than theirs. The bad news is that they have about 10 times as many ships as we do. What about the other species? Could any of them help in a fight? Zeph shook his head. The Catherians are not warriors. We never were. Most of the species in this region are the same, peaceful traders and explorers. The Vrex have systematically conquered or destroyed anyone with significant military capability. Sarah was beginning to understand the full scope of the problem. Humanity had revealed itself to a galaxy where one militaristic empire had dominated everyone else for centuries. Now they were the only force capable of standing against the Vrex, and dozens of species were looking to them for protection. Admiral, called Lieutenant Park from across the room. Priority message from Earth. Intelligence Division. Sarah read the message quickly, then read it again to make sure she understood correctly. They want me to return to Earth immediately for strategic planning meetings. What about the Catherians? Asked Elena. The second fleet is being deployed to provide ongoing security. Sarah looked at Dr. Zeph. Doctor, your people will be protected. But I need to ask, would the Catherian Republic be willing to form a formal alliance with humanity? Zeph didn't hesitate. Admiral Chen, after what your people have done for us, we would be honored to call humans our allies. Even if it means being drawn into a larger conflict with the Vrex? Admiral, said Zeph quietly, we were already in that conflict. The Vrex don't accept surrender. They don't take prisoners. They destroy entire civilizations. If your people are willing to fight them, then we will support you however we can. Sarah nodded. Dr. Zeph, I think your people are about to become founding members of something new. What do you mean? A galactic alliance. Multiple species working together for mutual defense against the Vrex Empire. Elena looked up from her research. Sarah, that's a massive undertaking. We're talking about coordinating the defenses of dozens of different worlds. Dr. Vasquez, 3 weeks ago we were a species that had never made contact with aliens. Now we're being asked to lead a galactic coalition. We adapt quickly. As Sarah prepared to return to Earth, she met with the surviving members of the Catherian Council. They were meeting in a conference room in the human temporary base, since their own government building was still being repaired. Council leader Thera, Sarah said, I want to be completely honest with you. The Vrex will not accept what happened here. They will come back with a larger force. How large? Asked Thara. We estimate they could deploy over 1,000 ships if they commit to this region. The Catherian leaders looked at each other with fear in their eyes. And how many ships do your people have? Asked Council Member Jorik. In this region? Right now about 400, but we're building more. 400 against 1,000, said Thara quietly. Those are not good odds. Sarah smiled grimly. Council leader, humans have a saying. It's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog. The Vrex have never faced an enemy that could match their technology and exceed their tactical abilities, but if they outnumber you so badly, then we'll have to be smarter, and we'll need allies. Sarah looked around the table. The question is whether the Kytherian Republic is willing to be part of something larger than itself. Thara stood up slowly. Admiral Chen, the Vrex were going to kill every living thing on our worlds. Your people saved us when no one else would help. The Kytherian Republic will stand with humanity, no matter what comes. Sarah felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders. She had come to Kytheria to answer a distress call. Now she was looking at the foundation of a galactic alliance that would either stop the Vrex Empire or die trying. Then we'd better get ready, she said, because the real war is just beginning. As her ship prepared to jump back to Earth, Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the TDF Prometheus, watching the largest fleet in human history move into formation. 3 months had passed since the Battle of Kytheria, and everything had changed. What started as a rescue mission had become the foundation of a new galactic alliance. Fleet status report, she called to her tactical officer. Admiral, we have 847 ships in formation, 350 from the Terran Defense Force, 200 from allied species, and 297 new construction vessels completed in the past 60 days. Sarah nodded. Humanity had mobilized its entire industrial capacity for war production. Every shipyard in human space was working around the clock to build warships. But they weren't the only ones preparing for battle. Dr. Vasquez, what's the status on our allies? Dr. Elena Vasquez, now serving as Secretary of Interspecies Affairs for the newly formed Terran Federation, looked up from her console. 12 species have formally joined the alliance. The Kytherians are providing star charts and intelligence. The Althari have contributed advanced shield technology. The Nexus Collective is sharing their sensor arrays. And the Vrex response? Elena's expression grew serious. Intelligence estimates they're massing over 1,500 ships for an assault on our territory. They've also begun enslaving their existing subject populations to build more warships. Sarah walked to the main display, which showed a tactical map of local galactic space. Red markers indicated confirmed Vrex fleet positions, while blue markers showed allied forces. The enemy had numerical superiority, but Sarah had been studying their patterns for months. Lieutenant Park, she called to her intelligence officer, show me the latest on Vrex tactics. Yes, ma'am. They're using the same strategies they've employed for centuries. Massive frontal assaults with bioweapons, followed by planetary bombardment. They expect their enemies to surrender when faced with overwhelming numbers. Have they adapted to our technology at all? Some minor improvements to their armor and weapons, but nothing significant. Admiral, they still think in terms of fighting primitive civilizations. Dr. Zeph Calandros, now serving as the Alliance's chief intelligence analyst, approached the display. Admiral Chen, we've been analyzing Vrex communication intercepts. They're calling this the final war. They believe that destroying humanity will eliminate the last serious threat to their empire. What about their emperor? Sarah asked. Emperor Thaxmore has taken personal command of the invasion fleet. According to our sources, he's never faced a military defeat in over a century of rule. Sarah smiled grimly. Then he's overdue for one. The bridge crew was interrupted by an incoming communication from Earth. President Martinez appeared on the main screen, flanked by the leaders of several allied species. The sight still amazed Sarah. 6 months ago, humanity had never spoken to an alien. Now they were coordinating the defense of multiple star systems. Admiral, said the President, we've received final confirmation from our deep space scouts. The Vrex invasion fleet is moving toward the Sigma Draconis system. They'll be in position to attack in 48 hours. Council Leader Thara of the Kytherian Republic spoke next. Admiral Chen, our people are ready. The evacuation of non-essential personnel from border worlds is complete. Ambassador Veltar of the Althari Federation added, our defense platforms are fully operational. The Vrex will not find us unprepared. Sarah felt the weight of command settling on her shoulders. She was about to lead the largest space battle in galactic history, with the fate of dozens of civilizations hanging in the balance. Mr. President, all Allied forces are in position. We're ready to execute Operation Prometheus. Admiral, said President Martinez quietly. The entire galaxy is watching. Good luck. As the communication ended, Sarah turned to address her bridge crew. These men and women had trained their entire lives for this moment. never knowing if it would actually come. All hands. This is Admiral Chen. In 48 hours, we will face the largest military force in galactic history. The Vrex Empire has conquered 47 civilizations over 5 centuries. They believe they are invincible. She paused, looking around at the faces of her crew. They're about to learn why that's a mistake. We didn't choose this fight, but we're going to finish it. All ships prepare for Operation Prometheus. The human fleet began moving toward the Sigma Draconis system, where they would make their stand against the Vrex Empire. But Sarah knew this battle would be about more than military victory. It would determine whether the galaxy remained under Vrex domination or entered a new age of freedom. 2 days later, the opposing fleets faced each other in the empty space between star systems. On one side, the Vrex invasion force, over 1,500 massive bioships led by Emperor Thaxmore's flagship, a 3-kilometer nightmare of living metal and organic weapons. On the other side, the Terran Federation fleet, smaller in number but representing the combined technology and determination of 13 allied species. "Admiral," called her communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission from the Vrex flagship. Put it through." The main screen filled with the image of Emperor Thaxmore himself. He was massive even by Vrex standards, his exoskeleton covered in battle scars from a century of conquests. When he spoke, his voice carried the arrogance of someone who had never known defeat. "Humans, you answered one distress call and think yourselves conquerors. Today you learn why the galaxy fears the Vrex." Sarah stepped forward, her voice calm and steady. "Emperor Thaxmore, we didn't answer one distress call. We answered the galaxy's call. Today you learn why you should have left it alone." The Emperor's laugh was like grinding metal. "Your alliance will break the moment my ships open fire. You creatures have no understanding of real warfare." "Your Majesty," Sarah replied, "you've been fighting defenseless civilizations for so long that you've forgotten what real warfare looks like. Allow us to remind you." The transmission ended, and both fleets began their final approach. "All ships," Sarah announced, "remember your training. The Vrex expect us to fight like the primitive species they've conquered before. We're going to show them what happens when you fight someone who's been preparing for this war their entire history." The battle began with a massive exchange of long-range weapons fire. Vrex bioweapons lanced out across space, their living projectiles seeking enemy targets. But the human fleet scattered into smaller formations, their superior speed and maneuverability making them difficult targets. "Phase 1 complete," reported her tactical officer. "The Vrex are committing to a frontal assault just as predicted." "Excellent. All ships execute Phase 2. The human fleet suddenly changed formation, surrounding the Vrex advance force in a 3-dimensional envelopment. Allied ships equipped with Althari shields absorbed the enemy's bioweapon attacks while human railguns and plasma torpedoes tore through Vrex armor. "Admiral," called Dr. Zeff from his intelligence station, "the Vrex Emperor is moving his flagship forward. He's trying to break our formation with a direct assault." Sarah watched as the massive Vrex flagship accelerated toward her fleet. It was a terrifying sight. 3 kilometers of living ship bristling with bioweapons that could sterilize entire planets. "Target the Prometheus on the Emperor's flagship," she ordered. "All heavy cruisers concentrate fire on that ship." The battle reached its climax as humanity's most advanced warship engaged the symbol of Vrex imperial power. The Prometheus had been designed specifically for this kind of engagement, a ship killer built to destroy targets much larger than itself. "Direct hit on the enemy flagship," reported the tactical officer. "Their bioarmor is regenerating but slowly. Keep firing. Don't give them time to heal." Around them, the larger battle continued to rage. Human destroyers hunted Vrex bioweapon ships while Allied cruisers provided covering fire. The 3-dimensional nature of space combat favored the more maneuverable Federation forces. "Admiral," called her communications officer, "we're receiving surrender requests from multiple Vrex ships. Their formation is breaking apart." Sarah looked at the tactical display. The Vrex fleet, which had seemed so overwhelming just hours before, was scattered and demoralized. Their bioships, designed to intimidate primitive enemies, were being systematically destroyed by coordinated human firepower. "No quarter," she ordered. "The Vrex don't take prisoners and they don't honor surrenders. We end this here." The Emperor's flagship made one final desperate attack, launching every bioweapon it had at the Prometheus. But the human ship's defenses held, and Sarah's return fire finally penetrated the enemy's regenerating armor. Emperor Thaxmore's flagship is breaking apart, reported the tactical officer. Massive internal explosions. She's going down. Sarah watched as the symbol of Vrex imperial power died in space, taking with it the Emperor who had never known defeat. Around them, the remaining Vrex ships were either destroyed or fleeing toward the edge of the system. All ships cease fire, Sarah announced. Pursuit ships, make sure none of them escape to report back to the Vrex Empire. As the battle ended, Sarah realized that they had done more than win a military victory. They had broken the myth of Vrex invincibility that had kept the galaxy in fear for centuries. Thank you for watching and comment for next part.